Well, this is the new VR45s Setpower 45 quart cooler freezer. It's a powered freezer cooler, and it's supposed to run off of the solar, so we'll see, but it should run off of the system that I have without having too many issues. So I'm going to get it unboxed and get this thing set up. Well, there she is. She looks pretty sweet. Pretty good size. We'll see how it does with the solar, but even though it had that great packaging, it did get damaged in shipping. Plastic is not that thick, but I don't think that'll really affect the cooler at all, and I guess I'll just take silicone and seal that up so water and stuff can't get in there. Pretty disappointing. I'm gonna have to send them a letter, tell them that that's what happened, but I don't think that'll affect the freezer at all, so I'm just gonna keep it, I guess. And yeah, there's like a cable to hook into a Deecee cigarette lighter, but I have a connector to connect that to the battery pack in the cabin. So I gotta go get this set up and let it start chilling. It's kind of later in the day. I wanted to start the chilling of it at the beginning of a sunny day, so it would have the solar power all day. And it's kind of late, so maybe I'll turn this on tomorrow morning and get it going. And the black tip on it. So yeah, that 100 watt pretty much keeps this thing charged all the time, except for if there's like rain. Like this summer we had a really rainy summer, so if it would rain for like 3 days straight, the sun wouldn't come out. By the second day I would have to switch this battery pack out with the one in the cabin. And the one down at the cabin I only use for my my laptop, and I use it for the fan in the summer. But usually that would pretty much be at 100% all the time, and sometimes I'd have to cut back on using the fan if it was really cloudy for a couple of days, because we'd have to keep this cooler, this freezer. This freezer's been running now off of this battery pack in this 100 watt panel for the entire summer, and it's October now, and I started this in spring. So it's working really good. It keeps everything really frozen at 11 degrees. I set it for 11 degrees. I'm going to do a video on this Setpower powered cooler, but it's a freezer cooler. And it runs at about 35 to 38 watts when it's running on its lowest run setting. But it stays frozen all the time, even when it was like 95, 100 degrees in this shed this summer. It would stay frozen. Like, it had no problem keeping frozen, and it had no problem running off of this battery pack here. All right, here we are at my shed, which is completely filled to the gillies. But we're here. We got this Setpower powered freezer / powered cooler. It does have a temperature range. It's of 50 to 6 degrees or something like that. But there's a little control panel, but it's all hooked up, and I'd have to unhook everything to look at the control panel. But at the end of this video, we'll look at the manual and then go over the manual. So in the manual, we'll explain what all these buttons are a lot better than I can anyways right here. So it has a light in it. It's completely full, almost just broccoli and hamburger. Ground beef, I mean. There's a bag of chicken in here. But it has a couple lights, so when the doors open, the lights come on. And it also comes with a basket for the small area that's above the compressor, because there's like a box. There's like a box that's kind of short because the compressor's under it, so there's like a shelf. And then there's the deep well, and there's a full basket for the well and for the shelf. So, and it comes with those two baskets when you get it from Setpower.
That video we just watched just before now was this freezer hooked up to the Anchor Powerhouse 800, which is how I ran it last year, because I have two of those Anchor Powerhouse 800s, and I keep one charged at the cabin and would keep one hooked up to the 100-watt solar panel here in the shed, which would be hooked to the freezer. And that thing worked really good. The only time it didn't work is when it was really hot. I mean, it worked, but it would run out of juice if it was really hot and we didn't have any sun for like 3 days. I don't know if you can hear that. The cooler just chirped on. This cooler is kind of loud. But yeah, the system I was using last year with that Anchor, if we didn't have any sun for 3 or 4 days, the battery would die. So then I would take the battery out of here, bring it to the cabin where I have more power and I use less power than the freezer. And then I would switch the batteries out and then run it for another 3 days on the new fresh battery that was at the cabin while I'm charging the other one. And usually I wouldn't have any problem. Like between those two batteries, I could get through whatever weather and cloudy days we have here in northern Maine during the summer. And in the shed, it gets to about 90 to 100 degrees every single day. So it was keeping this cooler completely frozen. I set it for 11 degrees is what I set the cooler what I set the cooler at. But I have you set up so I could talk to you on the tripod, but I'm going to take you down and get you in here because I can't really get the tripod in here because my shed is full to the max. But I'm gonna take you down and we'll look at how the cables are set up, because right now I have it hooked up to a lead acid battery. Because the lead acid, it's still early spring right now, it's May, and it still freezes at night, and the lead acid battery will charge up in the morning regardless of what the temperature is. Those lithium batteries I was using, they work great during the summer, and they even work during the winter, but it's not safe to charge them. You can degrade the battery if you charge them when they're cold. So if they stay in the cold all night, and then the solar panel comes on when the sun comes up, you're not supposed to charge them like that. So what I was doing is I was taking those lithium batteries out every night when it was going to be freezing temperatures, and then in the morning at 8 in the morning putting them back in. And since it's freezing temperatures, the freezer doesn't thaw or anything during that time, or thaw during that time. But yeah, let me take you out and I'll show you how it's hooked up now that we have this lead acid set up in here. This is the cooler. I don't know how the lighting was out there. And there's the control panel, which I'll explain at the end of this video with the manual, because there's like power settings that you can do, like a power save setting, or there's a bunch of different settings that you can do. So right now I have it hooked up to this Wanderer from Renogy. It's like a 10 amp controller, and to the battery that was in my car, and it wasn't running right, but after I replaced the battery in my car this winter, because this thing kept on dying in the cold, I had my friend hook this up to a trickle charger, and he kind of charged it up and got it to a point where it's definitely running this cooler. Yeah, the battery actually says that it's fully charged right now. So it's been nice and sunny the last couple days, but it's also been about 85 degrees here in this shed, and then at night it's been dropping down to like 45 degrees. So the battery is working good and it's keeping this freezer going. One of my only complaints about this freezer is it was kind of loud, but as you saw in the beginning, there was a little bit of damage in the corner here from shipping, and they gave me a $50 refund for that damage, which was good because the freezer still worked fine. So I basically just, it's a little dent that doesn't really affect me at all and doesn't affect the freezer. So saving $50 on it is great. And it was $350 originally on Amazon, and after that it brought it down to $300. So, and this is my second year. This is spring of my second year, so it's been in here for an entire year now, running. And during the coldest part of the winter, I just unplug it and then use it as a cooler and keep all the meat out here in the shed. And since it's freezing temperatures in northern Maine, it just stays frozen. And then in the spring, I use the lead acid battery, so I don't have to take it out every night because of the cold.
And then once it gets hot enough, I might take that lead acid out and put the lithium battery back in here for the summer, because I think the lithium battery operates a lot better in the heat and just works a little bit better than this winter setup that I have. But I'd say if you had a battery that was bigger than that car battery, that's probably only about 30 to 40 amp hours. If you had a 100 amp hour battery in here hooked to 200 watts of solar, you would definitely never have to touch this system. This fridge would just always run, and you would never have a problem, even if you had a week of shady weather where you don't have any sun coming. You would probably be fine. You'd have enough power, in a 100 amp hour battery. That car battery right there is probably 50 max amp hours, but I bet you it's only 40 amp hour, especially since I used it for 7 years in my car before this. So it's a junk battery actually, but I just figured I'd use it, and it's for the last 2 months it's been running this thing just fine. And like I said, the Anker Powerhouse 800 that we used last year ran this. Between the two of them that we swapped out, it ran this all year last year, so I'm pretty happy. I don't have electricity out here, so obviously to be able to keep some meat and stuff frozen all the time, no matter what the season is, and just be able to rely on that. I don't want to come in here and have everything be melted and everything be spoiled. So so far this Setpower has ran, and I even ran it during some colder times of the year, which I don't know how good that is for the compressor, because the compressor is not really made, I think, for an environmental temperature that's below 30. But it ran fine. Nothing seems to be damaged or anything. This one does vibrate a little bit and makes a little bit of noise. Like, I couldn't run this in the cabin all the time. Like, I originally was gonna put it in the cabin and use it as like a cooler, but I'm a really sensitive sleeper. I don't like noises and stuff when I'm sleeping. It messes with me a lot. So I couldn't sleep with this in my place. Some people might not have a problem. If you can sleep with a fan on, it's quieter than a fan, so it's not that loud, but it kind of vibrates the floor a little bit. That's why I have some of the foam that it came wrapped in. I have that under it because it cuts down on that vibration. But this one was damaged in the corner, so it was dropped at some point, so mine might just vibrate a little bit more than one that wasn't damaged, and they gave me the $50, and it's been running for a year so far, so I'm still happy with that deal. And it's just great to have a freezer out here when I'm off grid. It's, keeping a cooler all the time is costing a lot. Ice, $10 of ice a week, and that's money I don't have out here living this off grid life. So yeah, that's the Setpower cooler. Maybe I'll set you up and we can do a conclusion and talk about it a little bit more, and maybe talk about some other brands too that I might start looking into. Because this one's only 45 quart, which is, you can fit 2 weeks worth of food in there for a guy. Meat, ground beef and chicken and broccoli and everything else that you freeze. I don't put TV dinners and stuff in there. I only eat those few things really. But there's not enough room to like hunt a deer and then put a whole deer in there, or definitely you can't hunt a moose. You wouldn't have enough storage to put a moose in there, obviously. So this thing runs at about 35 watts. This thing runs at about 35 watts when it's plugged straight into a DC outlet, like a DC source. If you use this, which this is the power pack that came with it. So this is an AC adapter. So you plug this into an AC and this converts it to this DC thing. But when you run this adapter, you're pulling about 50 watts. So there is some loss and some conversion that happens when you're using the AC plug. And I only use the AC plug basically if I ran out of batteries. I have a battery that doesn't have a DC outlet on it, so I would have to use the AC thing, and I would do that every once in a while, like if I was like in between charging batteries or something, or if it had been like overcast for like a whole week and I didn't get any solar power, then I might have to use my third battery, which doesn't have a DC plug on it. So yeah, but that's what you get. So that's what you get if you do want to plug it into the wall. but just know that it's going to be about 50 watts of power. And the watts are only, it's only about 2 or 3 watts of maintaining power. So when the compressor's not on, it'll only be like 2 or 3 watts that it's pulling from your system. But when the compressor kicks on, it's about 35 DC and about 50 AC. And it doesn't kick on a lot, you know, especially if it's colder temperatures. You know, when it's 100 degrees, it'll kick on a lot. It'll run almost all day. But when it's, you know, cool temperatures and stuff, it's a freezer. So if you have it set in as a cooler, like at like 40 degrees, then it'll kick on a lot more too, because it's harder for a cooler to maintain that temperature because it's kind of above freezing. Once you get below freezing temperatures, you know, the ice in the whole interior of that thing just maintains a little bit easier because it's so insulated. And lower temperatures are easier to maintain than like 36 to 40 degree temperatures, which it seems weird that would be the case, but that is the case. Like that's why it costs more to run your refrigerator at home than it does to run the chest freezer that's in your basement. Like, it's a big difference in wattage there. And it's because once everything's frozen solid, a block, it's like you have, you know, all the food you have in there is like a giant ice block, you know, where in your refrigerator it's not. You know, all the food in there you're trying to keep from spoiling, it's not actually contributing to that coolness at all. So yeah, that's a Setpower. And we don't really need to do a sit-down conclusion, because I can say if you don't have a cooler and you live off grid and you're trying to do it solar, this is the lowest wattage system I've been able to find so far. There's Iceco, I think is the name of the company, but I'm going to try to get one of those. They have one that's almost twice the size of this, that's supposed to be about the same size compressor and probably about the same wattage, you know. And if it's under 40 watts consistently on DC, then I might buy one and try it out. And I might hook a whole nother system up in here and have 2 of those freezers next to each other. And I can do different temperatures, and maybe I can use this one as a refrigerator sometimes, or maybe I can just make ice blocks. You know, I wanted to make ice blocks, but I didn't have enough room. Like, I have enough room for food in this one, but if I got another one, I could make ice blocks. And then that way the cooler down at the cabin, I can not have to buy ice, but still have, like, you know, drinks and stuff, because this isn't big enough to have drinks and it's frozen. I keep it frozen. So yeah, we'll see. You know, eventually I'll get a couple other brands, hopefully, or at least one more, and we'll test that out. But the next one I'm probably going to get will be a 60 liter. Yeah, there's a 60 liter by Iceco that seems like it would be a good deal, but I think that's about 50 watts that thing runs at. So I don't know. We'll see if it's worth the extra wattage and how much more power that will actually take when I can come up with the money to do that, or if I can convince them maybe to send me one. You know, maybe I'll reach out to them and see if they'll do that. But anyways, yeah, power set. Yeah, and I paid for this with my own money, so yeah, I do like it. It's worked. You know, for a whole year it's been going. Uncle Dave with Deecee's Adventures. I'll see you in the next video. All right. And here is the manual, as promised. Contents, data sheet, safety information. It's recommended to not let this run at more than like a, I don't know, 30 degree angle or something. So yeah, this is just some basic stuff. You can pause it if you want to read it. This is just all safety stuff. And this is the data sheet. Tells you all the information in here. It says installed power 85 watts, but I have never had it at 85 watts, but I'm going to explain. There are power levels, and I've always kept it at the lowest power level. Getting started, it talks about, yeah, 30 degree angle. You know, the compressor won't work if it's tipped more than that. That information is there for guys who do off-roading and stuff. So like if you have your Jeep parked on a crazy angle, the freezer will stop working. So yeah, you guys can just look at this stuff if you want any more information. Operating your freezer. Has a 15 amp fuse, and that's right down by the control panel.
Ryan? I think we skipped a page, actually. Hold on. Yeah, I thought that there was a page on the control panel. So this talks about like the single zone operation, but this only has one zone. You know, like some of these freezers have like 2 zones, but this is like the battery protection thing. So you have it low, medium, high, and lower the setting, better battery protection it will have. And yeah, this is all the information on what that means. I always just run it on low, but they say like if you're trying to freeze the fridge really quick, like some guys use, like truckers use these, and you know, they'll pull over at a truck stop and get ready to go into the store, and you can put this on high, and then by the time you get out of the truck stop, it'll at least be cold enough that you could put like some ice cream or popsicles or a bunch of stuff in it. And it would pretty much keep it cold enough that it wouldn't melt on you while the freezer was like chilling out and becoming all cold. If you put it on low, it's going to gradually, slowly get cold, and then eventually the whole thing will be cold and everything will be fine. But this is the information on that. This is old car batteries, like gives you information on, you know, the power. The cooler has sensors in it, so it'll tell if the battery it's drawing from is so low that it's not getting enough power, and it will just shut itself off. That way it doesn't like drain a car battery or something until it's completely ruined, you know. So this is information about the control panel that's on it, how all the buttons are set up and how they work. So you can just pause this and read this if you are interested in any of that. And it does have an eco mode, so I run it on low and on eco mode, and for me, it's about 35 watts DC, so that's what it runs at. I mean, it says 85 watts. I didn't realize it said that the max power was 85 watts. I've never seen it run at 85 watts, but I guess I've never really ran it on that high power before. So yeah, there is the manual. It's not bad. Has pretty much all the information you would need for it. And a little error page here. And that sensor, the control panel will actually throw out these. If something's wrong, it will throw out an error, so you can use this here on the manual to tell what those error codes are. All right, well, there you go. Setpower RV45s powered cooler. Uncle Dave from Deecee's Adventures.